Thanks for joining, and we really appreciate you making the time to be here after work. I think it'll be worth it when you hear all the great things these folks have to say. This webinar is actually the third webinar in our series this spring that delivers practical strategies for finding work, investing in the right credentials, and negotiating your worth in the solar trades. We really hope it'll help you gain some new perspective from seasoned professionals and tradeswomen who will be providing honest advice, proven tactics, and encouragement. If you missed the previous webinars, you can still watch the recordings, which are on YouTube and on Heat Springs, and we've got links to all of that on our website as well. My name is Riley Neugebauer, and I'm the founder of Solar for Women, and I'll be facilitating the webinar tonight. I'm a solar technical trainer for Unirac, and I was previously an installer and a solar electrician with Namaste Solar in Boulder, Colorado. So this topic is definitely really relevant for me and my journey and feels really important to talk about, and that's part of why I created the organization. Solar for Women is a Colorado-based nonprofit that's building a national network for solar tradeswomen, supporting their careers through community, research, training, and advocacy. You can learn more at our website, www.solarforwomen.com, or follow us on social media. Let me advance my slide here. So this is a quick overview of our 3 webinars and all the amazing women who joined as presenters. And getting into me a little bit there, just a couple pictures showing my time at Namaste, on the roof or on the ground doing electrical things. And then here's a few bits of info in case you do want to follow us on social media. If you'd like to follow us on anything, you can do so there. And we've got a newsletter. We're looking to add people to that just to expand our outreach and the storytelling abilities. So please sign up for that on our homepage. It's just at the bottom of the page when you go to the website. And a little call for help. We're a startup. We have almost no funds, and we just formed our 501c3 about a year ago. So we're kind of celebrating our 1-year anniversary as an official nonprofit on this webinar. And so in today's federal funding environment, individual donors are really helpful. As you all may know, the federal administration is not a big fan of solar or women. So this is an organization that needs support in other ways. And so if the work we're doing, these webinars and the accessibility of it are something that resonate with you, I hope you'll consider even a one-time gift of $5 or $10. It may not seem like it matters, but it actually does make a pretty big difference for us when we're starting and building from zero. So small monthly donations even are a big deal. So we'll put the link in the chat there if you're willing to donate a few bucks. It would really help us out and help other solar tradeswomen as well. We all know that the solar industry is often referred to as the solar coaster, and this year is definitely no different. Given the current market realities, we know it can be a tough job market out there, and so we hope that this will give you some concrete advice and perspective about some of the ways you can best prepare yourself for interviewing with confidence, tracking and understanding the value that you bring to your current or potential employer, and considering how to turn that value into part of your negotiation for a better wage or salary. To help provide us with that perspective, we have invited 3 amazing women to share their experiences and tips with us, and they will each share a bit more about themselves when they present tonight as well. Jessie Callahan is the founding director of operations at Ironhead Solar in Oregon, where she built the company's solar division from the ground up. Her work focuses on operations-led scaling, system design, permitting, and building sustainable execution models in a volatile market. Jessie has led teams through rapid growth, high-pressure installs, and complex permit and interconnection environments while training crews new to solar. She brings a practical, behind-the-scenes perspective on how professionals can articulate their value, navigate hiring conversations, and advocate for fair compensation in tight job markets. Amanda Swahn is a talent acquisition professional and certified fierce conversations facilitator, specializing in building high-performing teams rooted in transparency, collaboration, and transformative dialogue. She is committed to driving organizational efficiency and creating scalable systems that empower individuals to align their professional growth with their personal passions. Driven by a mission to foster a sustainable future for the next generation, she has found her niche in the world of people operations in the solar industry. She strives to continually cultivate inclusive workplace communities that deliver both meaningful connection and measurable results. And Anna Bautista serves as the VP of Operations for Grid Alternatives, the nation's largest nonprofit solar installer. Anna is an executive sponsor of Grid's internal work to advance equity and leadership throughout the organization. Anna has 20 years of experience as a site supervisor, trainer, and educator, project manager, designer, and installer. She is certified by NABCEP as a PV installation professional, holds a BS in electrical engineering from MIT, and is the 2017 recipient of the DOE C3E Advocacy Award. So, silent round of applause or flowers for all these amazing women that are joining us as, volunteering their time to do this. I really appreciate it. They're high caliber folks. So Jesse's going to get us started.
Thanks, Riley. Hi, guys. I'm Jessie. I currently work in solar operations, building out and scaling a startup solar company under an established roofing company. A little bit about me. I started in the construction industry at 17 years old as an assistant to an architect. And over the years, I worked across architecture, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, drafting, permitting, and then got into solar, which then, navigated towards operations. And I grew up in a family where hard work and self-discipline were deeply valued, and I genuinely believed that if I worked hard enough and kept learning, I could accomplish anything the men around me could accomplish. Outside of work, I'm deeply passionate about nature and sustainability, systems, and just understanding how things work. And so that systems thinking mindset that I carry into my work, it follows me even in my personal life. And one of the pieces of advice I got when I first entered into adulthood was work hard and play hard. And honestly, I believed hard work alone was the formula. And so I worked constantly. But eventually I realized something. Hard work alone doesn't automatically create visibility. And so I found myself often overutilized and underrecognized and just waiting for someone to notice my value. But then I discovered the power of data. I believe that data changes everything because data can create visibility. It can turn invisible contribution into measurable impact. And that's when I realized it can make you the most powerful person in the room. So now I want to go on to the next slide. The why. So one of the biggest things I realized later on in my career was that a lot of the struggles I had experienced weren't just isolated personal failures, they were structural patterns. And research consistently shows that women are more often evaluated on proven performance and men are more often evaluated on perceived potential. So women consistently receive higher performance ratings during like performance reviews. Meanwhile, they receive lower leadership potential ratings. And potential ratings alone account for nearly half of the promotion gap between men and women. So this creates what's often referred to as the broken rung. So for every 100 men promoted into management, only about 93 women are promoted. And that might seem like a small gap, but when it compounds, the larger group you have. So that first management level becomes one of the biggest structural bottlenecks in long-term career growth. There are other patterns too. Like women are less likely to apply for positions unless they meet nearly all qualifications. I, especially in technical fields where I think certification and education is really important. Um, Meanwhile, the men only apply around the 60% mark. And so many women end up overperforming, overfunctioning, and overproving themselves while still waiting for that visibility. And a lot of operational technical work simply, it just goes unmeasured. And so that's the issue. The issue isn't capability, it isn't visibility, or I'm sorry, the issue is visibility. It's not capability. Because if your value only exists through perception, eventually your growth is going to become dependent on whether someone notices your contribution. See, perception is emotional, data is measurable. So the question becomes, how do you stop your value from becoming invisible? Can you hit the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
So if the problem is that hard work alone doesn't automatically create that visibility, the question becomes, how do you create the visibility into your value? For me, everything started coming down to three things. Build your value, track your value, and prove your value. So first you have to build that value. And that means learning beyond your title sometimes, developing cross-functional skills, understanding the systems and the workflow, solving problems, and just becoming operationally useful. A huge part of my career growth came from just curiosity. I learned functions far outside my original role because I understood that capability compounds over time. But building value isn't enough on its own. You also have to track it because if your contribution only exists in memory or perception, eventually it just becomes invisible. So track systems built, processes improved, time saved, operational efficiencies, even in your own personal workflow. They all have things like revenue impact. And there are a lot of things that we don't realize that, when we go to work and we improve even something minor, but it speeds up, maybe saves you 20, 30 minutes, that too compounds. So it helps because you can stop guessing your value. You can actually see it for yourself. And finally, you get, it's proving your value strategically. So this is where communication, storytelling, negotiation, visibility, positioning come in. The people who grow fastest professionally are often the people who can clearly communicate measurable impact. So something to kind of keep in mind is you are you are a business and you are the product and your data is proof. So your visibility is your leverage. But there's still a major problem. A lot of what most valuable work people do every day still goes completely untracked. Can you hit the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not tracked, it's not leverage. And that's where the mind shift really starts to begin. I had realized at some point I needed to stop waiting for permission to grow in my career. Your boss or your company, they're not responsible for your career growth. You are. Um, Again, you are the business, you are the product. Businesses invest in branding, visibility, systems, networking, analytics. And so you should too in yourself. I strongly encourage people to, like, for example, dedicate 1 to 2 hours a week to themselves professionally, much like filling out a timesheet at work or, when you develop a workout plan. Um, and these are things where you can track your own KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. They're data points to basically show growth or decline on a certain data set. It could be things like your install time, and I'll get more into that. Another is strengthening your network, sharpening your skills, join the industry calls, write the LinkedIn post, build the visibility intentionally. And I want to make this practical for the women on this call working as installers, technicians, designers, PMs, or operations staff. Track anything that demonstrates operational value, efficiency, quality, or impact. That can also include training. Um, for installers and technicians, that could be install times, commissioning success rates, reduced callbacks, troubleshooting examples, safety consistency, inspections passed, and the kind of leadership that maybe you deploy on site. Also, save your project photos. If you're an installer or technician and you're assisting in, complex battery project, whether commercial, utility scale, or even residential, save those photos. I know we all have to take photos as installers to keep track of our QCing, so use that. Build your portfolio with it. And during those, you can pay attention to it makes you more operationally aware, for what separates installers from like a future crew lead. Um, the other thing too, I wanted to make note of on this is one of the biggest tactical pieces of advice I can give is during interviews and negotiations, don't stop negotiating only salary, negotiate structure. So ask for written reviews, success metrics, and what that kind of looks like is when you get a job offer letter, that's the moment for negotiation. Um, you want to read through it. It's like a contract. It is a contract. You want to make sure that it captures your demands. You will go back to counter um, negotiate the offer. And this is where you can ask and have them record, like, I'd like to have a 3-month check-in or a 6-month check-in. I'd also like to capture in this offer letter the expectations, like what would you like me to accomplish within 3 months or 6 months? And if the company doesn't already have those systems in place, you can bring your own. Um, so treat every role like a project designed to deepen your skills, strengthen your portfolio, or increase your leverage. Next slide. So sorry about that. This is kind of an example of what that might look like. What you're measuring your value can look like, whatever role you might be in. Installer, technician, you can create a simple Excel sheet. It does not need to be complicated or pretty. Again, treat it like a timesheet. You're just gonna essentially things you might want to track are like your average install time if you're an installer or technician, your QC pass rate, um, troubleshooting time, inspection first pass, callbacks, material waste on a job site, safety incidences. And then for like a design PM or ops, you can look at like pre-approval from the utility turnaround for permits, the average design or engineering time on a specific project. And then examples you can pull from that are like I installed and commissioned a total of X kilowatt of residential solar, X kilowatt of battery storage systems over my time as an installer. Um, the other thing too is you might be in an interview with someone who is from the HR department, so they might not have the technical knowledge or skills to really kind of vet what you might be bringing in these discussions regarding data. It might not mean anything to them. However, when you are able to communicate measurable impact, that shows whoever's interviewing you that you're of value. You're going to add value to the job. Next slide, please. Um, this is, I was going to show like what I use, but I have sensitive information on there. So I kind of put something together that's simplified. I have 4 tabs on mine. I have a personal goal tracker, and that can look like, I do near term, 3-year, and 10-year. And so on that, I track my goals. I set my goals there, realistically setting which ones are near term, 3-year, 10-year goals. That way you're not stacking a bunch of long-term goals. You can wear yourself out by doing that. And this is just like what's your expected timeline, your progress, or your status currently on it. The second tab on that spreadsheet could be improvements and impact. Could be at what company, on what date, on a problem you identified, a solution you implemented, operational impact you had, and if you can, put a number to the estimated time and cost savings to it. Another, important term, if many of you have heard it or not, is called SOP, Standard Operating Procedures. I encourage everyone to get familiar with what that is and think about it as simply as if you came up with an idea on site how to better install something or convince the team to migrate to a better product to save time and money. That is an SOP. Capture it, write it, present it to your manager, keep it for your portfolio. Next slide. These are the other 2 tabs in that tracker sheet. Project tracker database. If you're a project manager, you probably have this. This becomes the foundation for calculating a lot of your KPIs or your averages, your trends. And it can just be basically what project it is, what role you played in that, and just your own KPIs, and whatever that might mean in your position. This also really aids in those that are going towards like collecting their hours in a electrician program. You're an apprenticeship. Instead of relying on the company to collect those, to track those hours, make sure you are tracking them yourselves, just so you don't get shorted. It also kind of shows you how far along you are too. So then the last is the KPI summary dashboard. That's something that I think over time you can build, but there's some really cool videos and tools out there to show you how you would do that once you have a data set. And that way you kind of have a cool little dashboard of visuals where it shows you your trends, your progress. Um, and then the next slide. So the whole the summary to this is if you don't own your data, you don't own your narrative. Your value can't depend entirely on being liked, remembered, or even noticed, because again, perception shifts, but data holds. And so this is why I believe that confidence does not come from pretending. It comes from having visibility into your competence. So when you track your growth, your projects, your systems, and your measurable impact, you can stop guessing your value because you can actually see it. And it's as simple as like you don't have to have a mantra in front of the mirror every morning before you go and hit that interview, before you go into work or ask for that raise. You can actually see it for yourself, and it highlights exactly what areas you need to maybe pay attention to and grow in, but also what goals you want to set for yourself. At the end of the day, the goal isn't just you know, survive your career. It's ownership, it's leverage, it's intentionally building that career instead of passively experiencing it. So define your value through your data and prove it through visibility. And that's what creates your leverage. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. That was amazing. Beautiful photos as well.
Thank you.
So hold on to your questions that you may have for Jesse and the other folks, and then towards the end, I mean, you can put them in the chat, actually. Feel free to do that now, and then we'll kind of come back around to questions, or if Jesse has time to respond to anything in the chat, I'm sure she would do that as well. And next up,
Absolutely.
we have, yeah, thanks, Jesse. We have Amanda Swahn, the lead recruiter at Omnidian.
Yeah, thanks, Riley. Great job, Jesse. That was really informative. It's a tough act to follow. Okay, I have been in talent acquisition for over 10 years. I'm also, like Riley said, a fierce facilitator. So I do all sorts of people operations things. I joined Omnidian in 2022, and that's really when I found my niche in the world of like solar and talent acquisition and people operations. Um, that year at Omnidian in 2022, I doubled the size of the company from 90 to 180 people. Now we're a Series C organization. And most recently, I built a team from scratch in Costa Rica. So we have a team now of 26. They've been in operations for a couple of months. So I'm typically hiring corporate roles right now. So operations, engineering, various leadership roles, sales, go to market. I have previously recruited for field roles as well. I worked for other solar companies. I worked for Sonova. I did freelance for a little bit for Cal Solar. So my career as a whole has been dedicated to connecting with people and building relationships. Really, that's what I do every day. I'm really proud to work at Omnidian because it's really a company that's committed to culture and excellence and inclusion. And that diversity work is really important to me, like as a person, that's part of my personal values. So I've been able to lead some of the efforts to grow and diversify that organization. So I'm in interviews every day with prospective candidates and job seekers like you all. And I partner with the leadership across our organization to lead the talent strategy and kind of coach my interviewers and my hiring managers on how to have those fierce conversations, right? So my hope in these few slides I'm going to go through is to give you like a little behind the curtain peek at recruiting and some useful tips as you continue to like grow your career and search for that next thing. Go ahead and advance if you don't mind, Riley. Thank you. So let's see. Women currently comprise 29% of the solar workforce. The gender gap in solar is well below the average overall US workforce. That's not great, right? But there are some other data points that better help to paint this picture to make it really exciting in a candidate's market. And that's 86% of solar employers are really struggling to fill positions. And most of those shortages are in mid-level technical and management roles, which at the poll at the beginning, it looks like that is a lot of you guys. So that's good news. That's the upside. And solar installers are one of the two fastest growing occupations in the US. So that's for like the third year in a row. So good news, silver lining. While there's this significant gender gap in the solar industry, like you have professional leverage and it's never been higher. So I also want to know, I know I'm a humble brag here about Omnidian because I really love the organization, but There are companies out there who are very focused on that gender parity, and company culture matters. So look for the right organizations that align with what you're looking for. So this chart shows the Omnidian gender diversity that we have across the entire company. You can see it's really split, and then the gender diversity we have in management and leadership. So I'm really proud of that, proud of my team for kind of the work there in the focus. So just wanted to note that, like, it's important that you find those companies that align with what's important to you. Go ahead and advance for me. Perfect. So, as a recruiter, I don't subscribe to high pressure interviews. My hope is that that's kind of like fading out. But I really focus on competencies and matchmaking. And as a candidate, as an interviewee, like, that's what you should focus on as well. That's what I train my interviewers and my hiring managers to do. So, some tips to prep for an interview. First, use the STAR method. Right? If you're not familiar with that, it's situation, task, the action that you took, and the results. So, like Jesse said, make those measurable outcomes. You can use that on your resume as well, to really focus on those measurable outcomes. If they don't, in those interviews, guys, if they don't use that like real world, they use hypothetical, then you take the lead, right? And you say, oh, actually, there's this time when I did this, right? Use real world examples. Don't follow that hypothetical. It doesn't showcase your skill set. Align with competencies and values. So I kind of said this before, do your homework, know the team that you're going in to talk to for those interviews, understand the vision, the goals, so you can really relate your experience and how it applies to that company. This isn't like a cookie cutter approach. It's not a one size fits all when you're interviewing. And if they're not digging into your skill set, then volunteer that information and review the job description to explicitly mirror those required skills. Clear is kind. You may be familiar with this tagline from Brene Brown. I'm a big fan of Brene Brown. But if you find yourself in these interviews that are like less intentional, you may need to advocate for yourself. If an interviewer is messy, it's kind of a red flag for you, right? This is a two-way door. You are also interviewing them. So be the leader of your own career, and it's okay to save that interview. Be clear about what it is that you're looking for. And that includes being curious about compensation. Start that dialogue about compensation right then in that very first conversation that you're having. Your time is valuable, and if the role is below what you're targeting, it's likely not the right fit. If you can check every single box in that job description, you're overqualified, right? Jesse kind of talked about that. So advocate for yourself and know your bottom number going into that conversation. The more transparent you are, the more they likely will be too. And that's how relationships work, right? This is the beginning of creating a relationship. So go into it with that mindset. You can also negotiate non-salary benefits. So like professional development, flexible schedules. Think about this as total compensation, not just one number, right? Really dig in and ask, do they have bonus? Are those realistic, right? How does that align? What percentage of that is your own individual goals that you're setting with your manager? Practice out loud, even if you seem silly. At the end of the interview, ask for feedback, right? Lots of people have feedback to give and they're just scared to give it. So just ask, is there any reservation that you have about my experience, about this interview, about my resume? Is there anything that would stop you from advancing me, right? There's nothing wrong with asking that. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Okay, so yeah, more on the power of feedback here. So it's in the data, right? Employees who receive feedback are more likely to be motivated than those who only get the annual reviews. 96% of employees believe that feedback helps them, even if it's negative feedback. So we also know that retention is costly, right? The cost of attrition is far more expensive than if employers are to invest in their existing talent, right? So they want to do that really deep down. We all have this desire for clarity. So the strategy to continue to invest in yourself is to have those feedback conversations, right? Those compensation conversations from the first interview. and then keep that alive. Now that's your responsibility, right? When you're in that role, you have to continue to have those. Talk to your manager about how to bridge that gap between hard work and career growth and what that means, what that looks like. 65% of us want more feedback than we get. That's more than half of us, right? Don't wait for your annual review. Like, it shouldn't happen one time a year. It should happen all the time, right? Really, 1 in 4 employees take initiative like that. So be the boss of your own career, and the leader of what you're doing every day, right? Day in, day out. Continue to be curious about the role expectations. Roles change, businesses evolve. Make sure that dialogue with your manager about the role, about the company, about where it's going continues to go with those changes. So know the facts of your performance, just like Jesse said, and get curious about the company's reality as it relates to that. So ask, how does my performance align with the team's current strategic goals? Right? And those can shift. So that's why you need to keep having those conversations and make sure the focus is on your outcome, not the activity, right? This is not about asking for more money, but aligning your pay with the value that you bring to the company's growth. So think about it more bigger picture. And think about your career growth long term. Utilize some of those benefits. Like, a lot of employers have um, employer reimbursement or education stipends. Ask for career ladders or career tracks. If they don't have it, then create it, right? Align the skill set that you have with the roles that you would like to have. Um, and advocate for yourself. We know it's more cost effective, so you just need to like have those conversations and use that market data as your quiet confidence. So when you step into negotiation, know that it's a feedback conversation about your worth, right? It shouldn't feel scary. I know sometimes it does, but hopefully that helps. So quick quality check that you can keep in mind is, look at your resume. Are you focusing on things you actually delivered? Negotiation is a feedback conversation about your worth. So be prepared in your one-on-ones, have an agenda, and then look at your career goals. Are they realistic? What's the timeline? Map those with where the business is going and how you need to change that to improve the business. Cool. Next slide, please, Riley. Okay, so when I review resumes, and in all honesty, recruiters, talent acquisition, we literally spend a few seconds on resumes, right? So it's an initial scan, and your value needs to be upfront and easy to locate. This is a narrative of your impact. So these are a few tips you can utilize to optimize your resume. Companies aren't looking for just like hiring your hands, they're looking to hire your brain for the ability to help build a similar vision, and that's why they're hiring you, right? Not for what you're doing right now, but what they're wanting to do in the future as well. So bridge the gap. Translate your day-to-day work into core responsibilities with metrics. That's a big one. Some of my favorite resumes also have hyperlinks to companies. So they, some of these companies are small. I have no idea what this company is, right? You might know it in your small town, but I don't know it, right? I'm in Seattle, Washington. I have no idea. Hyperlink it. Tell the story. Your resume is the story, and the reader doesn't have all the same information that you do. Like Jesse said, I'm in people operations. I am not technical when it comes to installing solar panels. I will be the first to say. So take me along with you in that story, right? Keep a results-driven mindset. Write your bullet points like those objectives and key results, or like KPIs, like Jesse said, and focus on the why and the result. Don't just list your daily tasks that you do in that role. Outcome over activity and quantifiable results. So the best resumes don't just tell me what you did, they show me that if I hire you, something at our company will actually be better off. Okay. Numbers create clarity and accountability. I think we're like driving this point home. So hopefully that's a good takeaway here. But a resume is not a to-do list, right? It's a highlight reel of these measurable outcomes, these like great things that you've done. So take that moment to brag. And make sure it has ownership, right? So this isn't something that you assisted, or maybe you did assist, but try to put things that you really owned, that you drove the results rather than being a passive observer. And then be camera ready. And I mean that in a lot of different ways. So update your LinkedIn. That's your digital presence. And in this modern world, it means a lot. A little tip, make sure that people who are not connected to you on LinkedIn can still see your photo and like your full LinkedIn. They're like, if you go, you can Google how to make sure, but you have to like go to your thing and click your profile and make sure that you allow anyone on LinkedIn to see that. And I think it really makes a difference because our digital world is really, it's where we're at, guys. So, yeah, and when you're interviewing, if you're on camera, be camera ready, you know, research the company, know what they're looking for, and be uniquely you as well. Um, yeah, the last thing I think before I turn it back to Riley is ask thoughtful questions. Show that you did your research and have thought about the role and the impact of your skill set and how that aligns with the future of the organization. So don't ask these first level questions that you can find on their website. Ask thoughtful questions that go second, third level, right? Really looking at you so they can picture you in the role at their company. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm always very, very happy to connect with anybody. So connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very passionate about doing this kind of work and happy to network as it's helpful.
Thanks, Amanda. That was awesome. I have a few questions I want to ask you, so we'll see if they end up in the chat from other folks too. Appreciate all the insight. It's interesting because I don't think we all get a lot of good access to people like you who have these roles where you really see it from this other perspective. So I think it's really valuable to hear both from the folks who are doing operations and the people who are kind of helping do the hiring and recruiting, so we can hear that other piece of the puzzle. So thanks. Okay, Anna Bautista is up next if she's ready.
Thanks, Riley. Hey, everybody, I'm Anna Bautista, she, her. I'm the VP of Operations at Grid Alternatives. Grid is a nonprofit solar contractor. We install clean energy systems on affordable housing. And I've had a career in solar construction now for over 20 years. I started as an installer. I've moved into technical sales, design, project management, training, and now I'm in operations, and I lead operations for our single family and our commercial lines of business. So I've been on both sides of the table. I've been a team of one, and I've also built teams up to 60 people. I've done the work and I've hired the people to do it. And so you just heard from Jesse on how to quantify your impact, and from Amanda on how to structure your resume and your interview answers. I'm just going to be reinforcing this theme of communicating your value, but from the perspective of the hiring manager. So congrats, you got through Amanda, the recruiter. Now you get to me and you get to the technical interview with the team. Next slide. At the end of the day, we're not hiring you to do tasks. We're hiring you to remove friction. You're not hired to just do the work. You're being hired to make the work easier. And so that means fewer truck rolls, fewer design revisions, fewer delays, better handoffs. Next slide. And this shows up across every role. So I'm showing 3 different jobs here, but really there's one job, and that's to resolve a pain point for your manager. And we don't want to hear just the effort, but also the impact. You'll hear impact a lot. And so for example, you didn't just install systems, you helped reduce truck rolls by showing up reliably and prepared, improving speed without sacrificing quality or safety. You didn't just design systems, you helped reduce revisions. By paying attention to the details, you understand code, AHJ, and utility requirements, and you design for installability. And you didn't just manage projects, you helped reduce delays by proactively following up, you understand the contracts, and you protect schedules and the budgets. So what we're listening for is not just what you did, but how you improved how things run. Next slide. So in the interview, we're collecting evidence of the following, and this is for any role. Do you understand how projects really work from end to end? Can you prevent problems? Do you think about time, cost, risk? Do you take ownership if things go sideways? Next slide. And these are just iterations of those questions. So these are examples of actual questions that myself or my team have asked in interviews. They're here for your reference. I'm not going to go through them through detail. But my go-to first question, so if you ever interview with me, my go-to first question is explain in your own words what you think this role is and how your experience enables you to be successful. So with this question, I can tell pretty quickly if someone really understands the work or if they BS their resume. And in your answers, we're not looking for perfect answers, that you never had any issues. What we're listening for is how you think under pressure, how you handle something new, and how you respond to feedback. So being a master at something doesn't mean you don't ever make mistakes. It means you know how to respond, take ownership, and adjust. Next slide. And here's a quick example of what slows installs down. This is not a full star response to Amanda's point, but just to show a weak answer is, sometimes installs get delayed and things aren't ready. So there's no failure mode here. There's no ownership versus a stronger answer. The biggest delays are missing materials or unclear plans. I double checked the bill of materials, the safety plan, the plan set, installation notes ahead of install day. So we catch issues early and we keep things moving. So same experience, but now we hear you understand the project flow, you see failure points, and you take action. So the first one, they sound like a passenger, they're following the process. The other one is the driver in improving the process. Next slide. And I'm throwing this one in here, and I recognize that AI is controversial, but if I were preparing for interviews today, I would use AI as a practice tool to get my reps in. So you can copy and paste these prompts, essentially attach a job description and generate interview questions. You can record yourself and attach the transcript and get feedback. If you upload the transcript for this webinar, you will be getting feedback from the three of us, essentially in AI. But be sure to keep your authentic voice. We have definitely rejected a candidate who sounded like a robot reading an AI script. So don't do that. Next slide. In summary, the way you're going to stand out is speak in specifics and tie everything to impact. Jesse and Amanda have set you up so well for this part. The last thing I'm going to add is to sound like you already work there. So the candidates that I remember are the ones where in interviews, we're already problem solving together. They're asking things like, where are projects getting stuck? What would success look like in 90 days? And it already feels like we're working on the same team. Next slide. So last slide, congrats, you got the offer, woohoo. And I'm just here to reinforce that this first number is usually a starting point. Hiring managers expect that. So take the time to consider the full offer package, including benefits, like others have said. When you respond, anchor on that value that you bring. Yeah, you should, yes, have your personal needs met to pay your bills, but don't lead with that. So you can try, is there flexibility based on the impact I can bring to improve efficiency or deliver on production goals? And as others have said, that salary is just one lever. And in terms of other things to add around flexibility and scheduling, I've heard requests for hybrid schedules, remote, 4x10s. Those are all things that could be negotiated up front. And so in closing, we know in this market, there's a lot of candidates that have similar experience. We hope we've shown you how to show the impact of that experience, show how you bring value to the team, and help you stand out. So good luck, everybody. We are rooting for you.
Thanks, Anna. That was great. Great way to sort of end and wrap everything up, I feel like. So I really appreciate all of you all. Let me get back to here for a second. All right, so the chat looks like it was pretty active, which is a great sign. We do have time for maybe just a couple of questions. Stop sharing for a second. Anna, did we have a couple, or Natalie, that we could ask the presenters?
Yeah, there's one question in the chat that was asking what is considered a high pressure interview. And I think that's referring to Amanda.
Yeah, sure. So I guess this could be a little controversial, kind of with how Anna was framing up some of her questions as a hiring manager. But I think I try to make it an inclusive conversation rather than creating like a high stress, uncomfortable environment where people feel like they have to think under pressure. So, I mean, what that looks like in practice is being like, hey, take a few minutes if you need to think about your answer, that kind of thing. I do an inclusive interview guide that I send out to interviewers as well, that kind of talk about some other inclusive interview practices of like, if somebody is neurodivergent or something like that, of like, I'm not grading you if you're looking directly at me, like those kind of things. Of course, we all are able to tell if somebody is reading off a script, and that's just like EQ, common sense, you can tell. But that is kind of what I meant. It's not rapid fire questioning, right? It's just open for accommodation in that sense.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for that. There have been a couple other questions in the chat. So someone just asked, or they said that they recently completed their master's in aerospace engineering and are interested in transitioning to the solar industry. What would you recommend as the best way to enter the field, especially for someone interested in hands-on operations and field work? I think this could go to any really of the panelists or anything like that. So I'm just kind of leave that open if anybody wants to respond to that.
It's actually, I took a new grad engineering student, and the first thing that I did was I taught him the project management aspect to solar, um, introducing to kind of all the upstream processes and risks, even what prepares it for a job out on site. And then he transitioned into a technician field before he moved on. So I think with your engineering background, you can definitely enter into solar, utilizing that degree, maybe looking into design engineering, utility scale, um, like mega projects, megawatt projects, and either like if you're a design and engineer, you're going to find yourself doing some project management tasks like permitting and getting really familiar with code. So that's one way. If you want to get out on the field, um, I think your first thing is you're going to probably want to apply, unless Riley might have actually some good pointers on this. Um, but apply as like a solar installer, and you're probably going to find yourself up on a roof first, dealing with like racking systems, or even if you're dealing with like ground mount systems, and then working yourself into more of a crew lead or going the apprenticeship route where you can enter, depending on the company, if they're like a training agent and they have electricians on staff, you could, and the company offers it, you could definitely see yourself growing into that, where you can be like enter into an apprenticeship program, and develop in that way. There's a couple of options, but I definitely think to get your feet wet, given your background already, a PM would be a good entry point into it.
Thanks, Jesse. I would also recommend watching the last webinar that we did on certifications and licensure, because they get into a lot of how you can sort of enter into some of these technical roles and the kinds of things that might be the best bang for your buck. And, Grid Alternatives has programs to teach people how to install solar as well. So there's a lot, SEI, heat spring, there's a lot of options out there for some additional training to sort of beef up that solar piece of it if you want to focus on solar. So that would be another thing, a resource to check out.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Riley, go ahead. I was going to say there's a few more questions. I was going to kind of piggyback off of that one, but I didn't want to interrupt you if you had.
I think Amanda's got to stop, head out here in a second, but I think the other two can hang out for a little longer for the happy hour part. But if before Amanda goes, if you have any ability to say a little more about these questions in the chat, kind of like as a recruiter, like is AI being used a ton? Like how do you kind of break through that first wave of your resume just getting tossed out immediately,
Yeah, it's a really good question because AI is definitely being used in these applicant tracking systems, right? So that's why I say it's so important. Like you don't just have like a one size fits all resume, right? You're really tailoring your resume to the job descriptions. I realize that takes a lot more work and that looking for a job is like a full-time job. Um, that is just kind of the world that we live in. So making sure that you're using some of those keywords because there is resume like parsing and scoring and ranking resumes because I get thousands of resumes, you know? So I think that's one part. One. Part two is networking, reaching out to people within the company. I can't tell you how many times that like I've ended up talking to a candidate because they reached out to like somebody at my company. They just kept reaching out and networking, right? It really makes a huge difference. So that's why I say I'm always open to networking as well. But yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Cool.
we should probably take a moment to sort of wrap up this portion of the webinar, and then we'll pause for 1 minute while people, grab a beverage. And also, we would really love it if you all would help us out by filling in the feedback form. I don't know if Natalie might have already posted it, but um, even just taking 30 seconds right now, I swear it's really short, would be helpful while this is fresh in your mind. And then if people want to run to the restroom or grab a drink and come back in just a couple minutes, we'll take a few more questions and get to meet more of you all here in just a second. So for those who do have to go, we really appreciate you coming, and I'll send out the slides and some info afterwards by email so that people have access to that again, because I think there's a lot of good content there that you might want to revisit. And then we'll have a recording and stuff too. And for the happy hour, whenever people are coming back on, if you want to come on video, I think that'd be ideal if you're willing, so we can see more of your faces.
And I think we should be able to make it so people can unmute and have conversation, right, Riley?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I know a few of you dropped some more questions in the chat, and I think that will be a really good starting point for our happy hour discussion because I'm curious myself about some of these questions too.
Riley, where would I find the feedback form?
I just put it in the chat. I'll put it in again because sometimes it gets buried with the other comments.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I'll
Thanks.
post it again right now. Thank you for asking and thank you for filling that out.
Yeah. And I think everybody, are you able to take yourselves off mute? So feel free to do that and turn video on when you're ready. And hopefully we can just have a little bit more of an open chat.
For folks who didn't attend the last one, Riley, I did put a comment in there just noting those organizations you mentioned on training and certifications.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, let me find the link too for the.
I'm sure there's others. And yeah, Grid Alternatives is wonderful for install training too.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if Matt Harris is really on this Women in Solar call.
I saw that.
He's been on a couple, I think, now.
Yeah, that's great. He's with ICAC.
I try to come to everyone.
Good. It's good to see your face, Matt.
Sorry, I'm trying to prepare a marinade for some fish. Here I am. Hi, everybody.
There you are. Okay.
Good to see you, Laura.
Good to see you.
I'm just posting. We have a blog post that gives the summary of our last webinar about certifications and licensure, and then also the YouTube page that has our recordings. So you can use those if that would be helpful to folks too.
I will say, even as somebody who's not really looking for a job right now, this is really useful stuff that I've never thought about for the most part, having sort of happened into my line of work. But I think it applies to so many other parts.
Yeah.
In my future as I pivot to whatever. But
yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree. And it's like a good reminder for hiring managers too. Like I'm on the hiring side, and so sometimes I forget what candidates are looking for from us. So that's great
Really?
from both sides.